Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Reading Workshop Week 8, Thursday. I am Mr. Puga, and today we're going to learn about content area words. You only need a reading journal to make some annotations and a pencil, of course, to write with for something to write. And that's it. Your full undivided attention. Let's get to work. All right. So I will show you how some texts have content area words specific to its topic. We will look for a content area word in a text and show an example of how to find its meaning. And then you will read page 185 of my book and answer the Google slide questions about content area words in this page. All right. So there we have a content area word. So content area words are words that we mostly only find in specific areas of study. So if we are reading a science book or a science article or a science story, it's very likely that we find words that we can only find in those type of texts. And the same is true for math or social studies, but those are specific to one topic. That's why it's called content area words, because they're just linked to a content. And they are often written in boldface, like in bold, thick letters, and they might appear in visuals such as diagrams sometimes. Okay, so we have a good example here of a biology or science text. We have the parts of a flower include petal, sepal, stem, stamen, and anther, and we have the names there as labels. Those content area words are easier to understand. We have because we have an image showing us, hey, here it is. So that's one way we can find the meaning of content area words. There's some other, like some fractions have common denominators. We have the image here, and it is not directly showing us what each part is, but there's usually an article next to it explaining it. Same happens with social studies, for example. The world has imaginary lines of latitude and longitude. We'll learn this in social studies, and in our social studies book, you can see the planet and the horizontal lines have a name, and the vertical lines have another name, and that's what it's showing you. So, um, for example, the words equation and estimate. What does that sound like? Think about it, say it, pause the video. Okay, so if you said math, you're correct. Let's see a couple more, another pair. Eon and rain. Where you see these words? Pause the video and come back whenever you have the word. Okay, so if you said social studies or history, you're correct. These are words. Eon, it's a measure of time, and rain, it's a place where the king and queen and the empire lives, like a royalty live. Uh, Tempo and harmony. Where can we hear this? Where have we heard this before? Pause the video. Okay, let's come back. If you said music, yes, these are words that are specific to music. They're content area words for music. Tempo, it's like the time of a piece of music, and harmony is it's hard to explain for me because I'm not a music teacher. But let's just say it's the I wouldn't know for sure, so you can also look it up. All right. So sometimes there are different uses of a common word. For example, iris. It could be either a flower or a part of our eye, like you see it here. Iris. That's the part that is around the pupil, and that's say that this. It's also true for pupil as a student and as a part of an eye too. So sometimes there's different uses for a common word. So the best way for us to find the meaning of the words are using context clues. And we've already talked about some of these ones, like for example, word parts. We've been studying prefixes, suffixes, and root words, Greek and Latin root words. So by separating these words in chunks, you can show meaning of it. You can find the meaning of it. And then examples, for example, crustaceans, and sometimes the authors give you examples right after the that content area where they might be complicated for you. They're showing you the examples there so you can kind of figure it out. Like crustaceans, shrimps, lobsters, and crabs are interesting creatures. Well, we now know that crustaceans are sea animals that have shells, because all of those are, because you could say, oh, they're the one that have tweezers, or how do you call them, like those little thingies they have on their hands. But well, shrimp doesn't have that, so it's mainly animals that have kind of like a crust, like a hard shell. And then the other way is definition. Sometimes the authors leave you the definition just right next to it. Often with after a comma. For example, the calyx, the leaf-like section that covers a flower bud, is green. So it's right there. The definition is right next to it. Also, like we already mentioned, they have visuals with labels. This is the easiest way to know the meaning of a content area word. They have the names right there in your face with labels so you can know it. All right, so let's try one. You try it first, and let's see if we can find the meaning of the following word, that it's a real word in the text that we're reading right now. Check it out. I'm gonna pause the video. You pause the video and try to find a word here that is kind of like complicated, and try to see if you find the meaning. You may find another one, and that's okay, but I'm looking for a specific one here. So pause and come back whenever you have the word. Let's see if we have the same one. Pause. Okay, so this is the word that I found. I know that sulfur dioxide, that's a neat, hard concept to understand. But let's not talk about that right now. Let's talk about, and I also, seismograph. That's kind of simple because seismograph, graph, it's, we already established at some point that graph is kind of like writing. Seismo comes from tremor. It's like a earthquake. But we're not going to discuss that right now. The one that I want us to discuss is this one. Harmonic tremor. Oh, it sounds fancy, right? But it's not complicated at all, because there's an easy way to find this meaning. Now that you know the same word that I have, pause the video again and try to find the meaning. You have to figure out how. Pause it. Okay, so if you found out that harmonic tremor, it's kind of like an earthquake, you're absolutely correct. But let's see the actual definition of it. It's right here, like I said. Remember when I told you that sometimes they give you the definition right after a comma? This is one of the cases. Check it out. A harmonic tremor, comma, a constant humming earthquake, earthquake that often means magma is rising and boiling away groundwater. You see? It's pretty simple. That's what a harmonic tremor is, a constant humming earthquake. We have the definition right there. There's several ways the author sometimes hides meaning around the text. Now it's your turn to find it in the Google slide that I shared with you. Well, your teacher shared with you. Complete it, find the meaning of the word, and then turn it into your teacher, all right? Keep finding fancy words all around, content area words, that is. See you around.